Let's take a look at my favorite new character. That is, of course, Harry the Hammer. Yes, Harold Hammerstorm. This is a test game between Flying Taco and Black Phillip of the XMT clan. And it's specifically a test game because Flying Taco actually took this Warriors of Chaos build minus about 3,400 points, I want to say, versus a standard kind of regular vampire counts build. So the thing about Harold you have to understand is that he makes undead rout. He's got this ability here, which is, as far as I know, totally unique. Who knows, maybe we'll see something like that in the future, but probably not, honestly. It is a very powerful effect that simply removes the undead attribute and gives him a nice -4 leadership. He also causes terror, of course, so between these two effects working in tandem, he by himself can actually terror out things like zombies or any undead units, which is pretty hilarious. It's also got this Bane Shield, which gives him extra melee defense and negative weapon strength in an AoE around him. And this Hammer of Harry also gives him an explosion for a little bit of AoE damage as well. For the rest of Flying Taco's build, he's going to be supporting him with a nice blob of Festus the Leech Lord and a Chaos Giant. He's got the Weird Spawn, Severed Claw, and Chaos Warriors of Tzeentch with halberds for lots of magic damage, as ethereals are always a threat. For the vampire counts, got a couple of Blood Knights here, Blood Dragon up in the sky, we've got a single Banshee, it looks like, White King as well, some Crypt Horrors, Zombies, Corpse Cart, 2 Corpse Carts even, just regular old non-healing Corpse Carts. Another important thing to understand, most healing effects for vampire counts, vampire coasts, and Tomb Kings target specifically undead. So if I get the unit card for the Blood Dragon Lord up here, you'll see that these affects units if undead on that tooltip right near the center. So essentially that means Invocation of the Heck and other heals won't be working while Harry is removing the undead attribute for everything nearby. So he's going to get in here, give that little explosion. I don't know, maybe the VFX actually just bugged out for it. I didn't really see, but regardless, we see already Skeleton Warriors terror routing, and the zombies terror routing as well. I mean, they have such low leadership that once you remove that undead attribute, they will want to rout very, very quickly. That said, Black Phillip's going to come in here and try and snipe Harry with the Blood Dragon. This is probably the best call, although the Blood Dragon does have the Severed Claw and this Giant here also supporting. The Giant will be able to get some matched animations and actually stagger the Dragon a little bit here. Mess of Banners means I'm just going to keep it in cinematic cam up close for just a minute. Festus, of course, great for sustaining. This kind of a giant blob build would also be a good target for sniping. But, yeah, this is basically going to go on for some time, more or less, how it is. I mean, certainly that initial damage spike from the different abilities of the Blood Dragon was able to come in and do a lot of damage to Harry, but he was able to stabilize for the most part. And let's just keep it in cinematic cam as the massive banners is 100% blocking our view of this beautiful mess here. Yes, the Giant just taking the swings. And the, oh, I didn't realize that bug was back. The Konigstein Stalkers now appearing ethereal once again. That's interesting. Anyway, sorry, my cat is distracting me a little bit. Here we go. So, yeah, I mean, basically, this is it. This is the whole thing. And as much as people don't like these degenerate blob builds, I totally understand, but at the same time, this is kind of the vampire counts way. Much as people hate it, you know, playing as the vampire counts or playing against the vampire counts, oftentimes the most optimal way to play as them or against them is to do some degenerate blob stuff. Most of the time, vampire counts are able to outblob most factions. I mean, in Game 3 at least, Nurgle can give them some problems in that type of situation. Historically, they've been challenged by the Skaven, but in my opinion have always been able to beat the Skaven in a straight-up blob grind. Warriors of Chaos have always struggled for various reasons in this matchup, so for me, not only is it cathartic to see undead units literally routing, because that's hilarious, but also just to see the vampire counts kind of get their comeuppance by another faction in degenerate blob builds. I will say Lizardmen are another one that can potentially challenge them in blob fights. But we see here a nice Fleshy Abundance, I believe, was popped in here to heal everything back up. Harold also is doing just fine, duking it out. He is technically an undivided character, although his color scheme definitely looks more ornate. And he's here just delivering his strikes. Come on, Harry. Let's see what you got. Okay, looks like they're all going to be kind of forming up once again. Blood Knight's doing a decent job of cycle charging, trying to get rid of the spawn, and the weird spawn are just about down, which is great. They're going to be debuffing the armor, obviously, of everything they're hitting here. Not that it matters too much. Most of this is armor-piercing damage anyway that's coming out of these few units that remain, but yeah, this is going to go on for some time, so let's actually just fast-forward now. As this, as I said, goes on for quite some time, the Severed Claw continue to just battle it out. I mean, really thinking about what the vampire counts could bring to potentially a counter situation like this is a little bit tricky because of the removal of healing effects, right? Not only Invocation of Nehek, the lore attribute for lore of vampires, but the Corpse Cart's Unholy Lodestone, the Reliquary Binding from the Mortis engine, all of these do heal only undead units, right? Now, the Hunger does not. This is something that is universal. I mean, it is mostly on undead units, right? But if I can pull it here, maybe. There we go. It should be active while he's in melee. No, it does not actually have Hunger on the Blood Dragon. Anyway, Blood Knights actually do have Hunger, and of course it doesn't affect you if you're only undead. It affects always. Same thing with the standard regeneration trait of like the Corpse Carts and Cryptors, right? They're going to give you that standard regeneration trait, which will still work, but obviously everything else is going to get shut down, and that is a significant impact, besides the fact that units will just rout away. And normally the benefit of undead is that your units keep fighting even while they're technically routing, right? Even though their stats might be a little bit lower to compensate, you don't lose any efficiency uptime in that way, because your units just stay in the fight, right? In this, though, because the units are routing away, and even though the area of effect of Herald's kind of special ability is relatively small, so you've seen here, once the units rout out of the area of effect, they turn undead and immediately come back from routing again. But regardless, they're still losing a bit of time where they would have been otherwise fighting. And not to mention, I don't know if exactly with how the shatter mechanics work in a situation like this, if you could potentially actually shatter a unit, and then if it becomes undead, does it just automatically disintegrate? I'll have to actually look at that and maybe do some testing, maybe keep the banners up a little bit, as some stuff has definitely cleared out. Makes it a little bit easier to see what's going on from a banner's perspective, so see that Banshee sneaking in there on the side, getting a few hits on Herald. Herald is trying his best right now to just stay in the blob of the Aspiring Claw and kind of block with Festus and the Giant. But he doesn't take too much damage. It's very critical, of course, to keep him alive. You think, is he actually unbreakable? It does look like he's actually unbreakable, to be honest. But anyway, let's get in close, watch him duke it out with this Banshee a little bit. Or not. Or he'll just continue, you know, standing here in the middle of his warriors, just taunting the undeads, calling them silly names, or whatever he does to remove their undead attribute. But yeah, Herald there is unbreakable, definitely. So it's another big benefit to him. Relatively expensive for an infantry character, but he definitely offers a lot of upside. Obviously going to hard counter any undead factions, but even against non-undead factions, I think he could still be a pretty good choice for certain situations. But Blood Dragon's going to go for one more big charge down in here. And oof, nice. Getting some little matched animations here between the Giant and the Dragon. Nice little headbutt there. You can see the Aspiring Claws also getting in there as well. Where's Harry? Is Harry still alive? Harry is barely still alive. Still kicking. Hasn't quite kicked the bucket yet, but it's definitely still smacking around. There goes the Blood Dragon. Looks like Harry might have actually delivered the final blow with his hammer in the side there. But with that, looking pretty rough, obviously, for the vampire counts. So despite being 3,000 value down, Flying Taco was still able to just grind through with this degenerate blob here. So again, some people aren't going to like this, and I totally get that. But at the same time, it's definitely interesting to see that this is possible now with Warriors of Chaos to do. And Harry obviously is a really awesome character, even used in more traditional type builds, but I would definitely say this is a very strong way of playing against the vampire counts. There's a lot going on. I mean, not tactically necessarily, but just from a build mechanics perspective. Not the most interesting playstyle, certainly, but the magic damage from these Tzeentch units helps cut through ethereals just in case. Obviously, giants are what they are now. They can be insanely cost-effective, and massive weapon strength. That slow speed and vulnerability to missiles is less important here, especially as you want to keep them on top of Harry and Festus. All these, 3 single entities and elite infantries working in tandem is quite nice. The only one that doesn't pay for itself here is actually the weird spawn. So, very interesting choice. And Taco and Philip did send me another game where Taco took a full build, and it was even more one-sided against Black Philip, obviously. So, it's potentially a tough matchup now for vampire counts. I don't know. I think, Harry by himself might have been enough to flip that just because of that specific mechanics. And, I mean, what could you do to fight this as the vampire counts? Obviously, Harry's doesn't have any magic resistance, and although he does have healing from something like Festus, could maybe Spirit Leech him to death alongside, Spirit Leech plus trying to snipe him maybe with like a, I don't know, some kind of dragon character or multiple, like if you take Manfred maybe, take double Banshees and try and get both the Banshees on Herald and Spirit Leech him at the same time. Maybe that would be enough to deal with him, but you definitely want to try and get rid of him if you can. And same thing goes for the Tomb Kings and the Vampire Coast. Now, I haven't looked or played either of those matchups yet with Herald, but I would imagine it goes somewhat similar, although the Blob ability is definitely a lot less against those two factions because they actually have missiles, right? But, I mean, Tomb Kings already, in my opinion, had a little bit of a tough time often against Warriors of Chaos, simply due to the Warriors having some really nice tools, burning heads historically, Lore of Fire just in general has been very good here, cost-effective halberds and other things, so it was already not the best matchup, but even just in a standard kind of Warriors of Chaos versus Tomb Kings build, mix Harry in there and you can definitely use him to try and route, especially like the infantry or slower monstrous infantry. At least in this matchup, you're looking at something like Tomb Guard maybe or Shabti. 50 leadership is really not that much at the end of the day. 70 on the Tomb Guard is much better. It'll be a little bit harder to route them, but just using him even to go after front line of skeletons too. I mean, only 35 leadership. You'll be able to terror out these guys almost immediately on impact with him. So using him to break an undead front line and be able to collapse onto the missiles in the second line with a nice kind of combined arms rush would probably be the best way of using him against Tomb Kings and Vampire Coast. Coast is an interesting one. He could definitely go toe-to-toe with somebody like Noctilus, no problem. Beat up whatever the infantry they have. And, I mean, Coast arguably could try and missile snipe him, maybe, with some different tools, but they're not the best at single-entity missile sniping specifically, so it could be a little bit tricky. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. What's been your experience playing with and against Herald? Definitely my favorite character as, a blatant undead hater. I am definitely a huge fan of Herald, so thanks for that, CA. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.